Hey guys, back with some more Bazaar, Falconator here, and it's been a minute, I know. But now we have a Dooley guide. So we're going to talk about Dooley. He's been my favorite character this season, and in this guide we are going to cover what is Dooley about. We're going to cover the cause, obviously, a key item of his. We're going to have a look at some of his build types. We're going to look at some of his key items and where to find them, and like just categorically some of his key items. Have a look at some of his skills and skills in general that enable Dooley. Have a look at his early, mid, and late game, and then talk about Dooley's end game as well. And that's what we're going to cover in this video. Just a quick reminder to drop a like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below as well. Let me know how you've been playing Dooley so far this season. I've stuck to a few select builds, but I'm curious to hear how everyone else has been playing him. So, as a brief introduction, what is Dooley about? What do you want to do as Dooley? Dooley is a tempo-based character. Like Vanessa, he relies a lot on building momentum, like building around things like the cause, like dinos, and just continuing on that path, not doing too many crazy pivots like other characters, but it's all about tempo with Dooley. And when we talk about go fast, mostly, Dooley, when we think about Dualtron, when we think about drill, it's all about charging items really quickly by getting haste, slow, poison, burn triggers. It's all about getting our cores to charge as quick as we can. Across most builds, it's about trying to go as fast as possible, typically. Typically, that's how it works. But there are some cases where it's not like that, like dinosaurs. Like, obviously you want your dinosaurs to go fast, but that's not the sole focus of your build. When we're talking about dinosaurs, that's not really what it's about. That's why we put mostly in there, because it's not always about that, but I find that in most cases with Dooley, we want to go as fast as possible. So, next up, we have the cores. I will talk about the cores briefly for a little bit. So, first we have the armor core, which I think this season has been a really solid choice. A common theme with these cores, and I'll mention that briefly, is when we use an item, it charges it somehow. So traditionally, it's when we use any item to the left of this, charge it. And armor core is what we call use an item to the left, you scale items and itself to the right. Like you're scaling items to the right and itself. This one's obviously a shield-based one, 765, which is pretty standard for cores. This has been a great pick for me this season, running things like force field, late game going to things like bunker. Obviously, duct tape being really accessible to Dooley helps with this, because we're effectively doubling our shield with only one small item to the right of this core. I think this is a really solid option. I really, really like this one. Companion core has definitely been one of my favorites this season. This is obviously a friend-based core. And when we can see when we use another friend, charge us 1 second. So it's not use items to the left, it's when we use a friend. And we're hasting adjacent items for 2, 3, 4 seconds on its upgrades. And then 6, 5, 4 on its cooldown when we upgrade it as well. So we're getting more haste procs on adjacent items and hasting them for longer, quicker. And I guess the aim with this is to use friends as fast as possible, and then scale those friends somehow. Alright, so next we have Critical Core. Now this is a great self-scaling option, and if you have a way to scale damage on the crit core reliably as well as get it to 100% crit chance, this is a really solid option. It has changed a little bit. It used to, I guess last season, it was like 8, 7... 5, I think, is how it worked back when crew tools was still a thing. Maybe that wasn't last season, but the one before. Crit core for me has been, I guess, a little bit of a nothing pick. I don't know. I found that I've never been very good at playing critical core, so I typically avoid it. But, when we think about having innate crit, that's its scaling, right? It does 50 damage, and, if we have a way to scale that damage, then we've got a really, really great damage dealer, because we're just doubling that. And it's pretty straightforward. And then obviously it has a unique way of charging, because we have, when we crit or use any item to the left of this charges 1 second. So if we have all items to the left and they're critting and activating, we're going to get double charge, which is a really interesting interaction with Critical Core. Ignition Core. This was my favorite core a little while ago. I found it to be super reliable. Now, not so much, I think, with the enchantment changes. So, 865, burn 4, this and burn items to the right of this gain 2, 4, 8 burn for the fight. And then it's our typical when we use any item to the left of this charge 1 second. Ignition Core is probably still a great pick. Obviously, burn is very, very reliable in the sense that you don't always need to be activating the Ignition Core in order to do damage, right? We can just activate the Ignition Core. We can rely on the scaling, and we want fast activations, but it's going to be dealing very consistent damage versus something like Critical Core, which obviously it has to activate to do damage. And that's why Ignition Core was my favorite pick, just because of that, I guess, passive damage that you get from burn. I think it's really, really great. Haven't really played too much of it this season. Let me know if you have. I have seen some really great players play it, but I'd be curious to know from you guys. So next we have one of the newer cores. We have Launcher Core. This one has been great for me this season as well. 765 on its cooldown. 2 other items start flying and charge your other flying items 1 second. And when we use a friend or flying item, charges 1 second. So if we have a flying friend item, we get double charge on it. So this has been a really great pick for me this season as well. It is essentially, at least what I believe, it has a slower startup than the core in terms of charging items, but the ability to position it wherever you want on your board and gain charge on all of your items eventually, I think is really strong. So it has a slightly slower startup, but if you can get flying items to go off more and quicker, earlier in a fight, then this is a really great option because you can get some really crazy fast combos going with this. I think it's a really, really solid pick. And then we have what I think is another great pick this season, Primal Core. Dinos are really good this season. There's no sugarcoating it. It's a great build. It's kind of reliable. It can be kind of hard to find the items that you need to run dinos. But even if you don't have the dinos, in all honesty, you're getting Dinosaur every time, right? Like a small, fast weapon that will get scaling from Primal Core no matter what. And then you just kind of put some really great weapons like Pulse Rifle or Uzi next to Primal Core, and that's your scaling. So, belaying all that, 875, which by the way, going to 8 at the start is kind of rough when everything else is kind of sitting at like 7, like Launcher Core, like, Critical Core. Ignition Core did get its cooldown nerfed a little bit. But it is, great at Diamond. Then obviously your Dinosaur and Relic weapons gain scaling for the fight. It's omni-positional, I guess you could call it. You obviously want to have some things adjacent to it that don't have the Relic tag because adjacent items are relics. And then when we use another Dinosaur or Relic, we charge us 1 second. It's a great option this season. I've been liking it. Another one which I haven't really been using much is the Core, and I haven't really been seeing much of this at all. You do see some crazy combos with this sometimes, but it's always a high roll, I find. I haven't really been seeing it too much. Don't take my word as bond though, I'm sure it's okay. 654, we're dealing 50, 75, 100 damage. So it's got a lot of innate damage, which is good. And we're charging all items to the right of this 1 second. And when we use any item to the left, charges 1 second. So, use an item to the left, charge items on the right. Pretty straightforward, very traditional core type. You can go crazy with this. When you go for something like you get a 3D printer of some kind and you're going really fast and you're charging a high impact item on the right, that's when the core really shines. Let's say you've got Solar District, for example, a really, really high cooldown item, but it has super high impact, so you want as much charge on that as possible. That's when something like the core comes into play and we can make that go nice and quick. Weaponized Core. So another traditional sort of core in terms of when we use any item to the left, charges 1 second. 865, deal 20 damage. This and weapons to the right of this gain 20, 30, 60 damage for the fight. An interesting trend in terms of this and the ignition core is the massive upgrade on gold. Like, obviously the scaling doesn't go crazy. It does for ignition core, but we get the 2-second decrease rather than the 1, which I think is a really, really huge upgrade, and you get it guaranteed at level 7. So if you can survive until then, especially in those later days, then you're looking really pretty. Weaponized core is another one that I haven't been running too much this season, but it's just a really reliable self-scaling item. You could definitely find use cases for it, and it's probably great. Like, it's just not one that I find myself using that often, because I like sticking to my old reliables, you know. I do like exploring new builds sometimes, but I don't get the chance to play this game that often. So, you know, when I do play it, I want to, I guess, maximize my effectiveness, and I want to play the builds that I know and that I know will work. Those are all the cores. Obviously, we went from starting with companion core, critical core, ignition core, the core and weaponized core, and armored core as well. And then we got new ones like launcher core, like primal core, which I think are great additions to the game. And yeah, I'm excited to see them release more in the future. I think a really obvious avenue is like a poison themed Dooley expansion with, you know, a poisonous core, like a toxic core of some kind. Yeah, but like, I guess like the core of a nuclear reactor would be really funny. Maybe, kind of. But yeah, those are all the cores. So now we'll get more into build specifics. So now we get into, I guess, a brief overview of build types. So in no particular order, I think Dualtron is still a great build around item. So I call it Dualtron build. I guess you use drill early on and then move into this later. Self-scaling cores, so your things like weapons core, like your ignition cores. Dinos, still really strong. Shield / force field. Friends, flight, and kind of tech. I put kind of tech in there because I guess I haven't really seen a lot of people running tech-only builds. I can see it being really strong, especially in the late game with things like Chrono Barrier, but I don't see it all the time, so I kind of just see tech get implemented into other builds. But without further ado, let's get into our massive spread of builds. Alright, now, I know it looks a little bit overwhelming, but we will get through it together. Don't worry. I guess to start off, let's just look at the center here. So what I've got in the center here is what I think to be some great general utility items on Dooley. I think that these are really good in like the majority of situations. Like we've got, you know, we've got what is it called? Fiber optics. We've got you know, we've got thermal lance, we've got metronome, just a lot of really solid items that I think work well in general. So pulse rifle, if we put it adjacent to our friend and our only friend, it just becomes an extremely quick weapon, which is like a lot of procs. A similar thing with Uzi when we're looking for multiple procs really quickly is, you know, it's a 2-second ammo item. So when we're looking at cores that we want to scale, you know, putting something to the left of that makes a lot of sense, right? Yeah, and then we have some, like, hologram projector is a great thing, I guess, in the later parts of the game when we want to maybe try and create some kind of infinite combo. And let's say we have fiber optics and we have hologram projector as our only 2 small items, and all of a sudden our item on the right is getting charged like crazy, and, you know, things like that. But yeah, and then obviously, like metronome is one of maybe the best Dooley item, I think, in general. Like, it just powers so many builds, and it just is such a great item that can be used in so many different situations. Metronome is definitely one of my favorites. So moving past some great, like, general utility items, and like a small disclaimer while I move through this, these are not, like, you know, all of the best items in the game, and they're not the only items that you can play. All items have a use case. I have pulled examples of items. There are definitely other ones, like, you know, Rex Specs for dinosaurs. He's not in here. And, you know, other shield items that can definitely get played for armored core. it's not the only use case. I've just put these in here because they're great examples. Friends, obviously having some of the widest examples, probably has the most over here. But yeah, without further ado, let's move on from our general ones and let's kind of move outwards a little bit. So next we have this little guy here, levitation pad. So the arm to the left of this is flying. We haste it. It's just a great like general haster, and at diamond we get, without slow, infinite haste upkeep for the item to the left. I think it's a solid option, and it kind of leads us into our flight build. So we have the launcher core. When we use a friend or a flying item, we charge it, and then we charge all other flying items on use. And then we have the launch pad, which is when we use an item that is flying, burn, and then also on its actual use, on its cooldown, we have an item starts flying. And then we also have the propeller hat as well, which is when an item starts flying, haste for 1, 2, 3 seconds, I believe it is. These are examples of flying items as a part of Dooley's pack. I think that it is a pretty solid build at the moment. Especially for me, the end game to this is things like Launchpad. Like, and we're using flying items really rapidly because of Launcher Core, and as such, we're burning really quickly. And the most important part of this build, I find, in the end game, is finding really fast items. So when we look at some of our general utility stuff, Pulse Rifle is a decent option. We have Thermal Lance as well, which is really good. Thermal Lance and Welding Gun, which are also really good options. And then, yeah, obviously Uzi, Metronome, powering it just to make it go faster are great. But then, apart from fast items, what do we want? We want more burn. And then we want a great enchant for our launcher core as well. So something like Heal Shield, in a rare case, Obsidian. And we put it on this because we get to use it so often. So we want more burn on this. And how do we get that? We get that through skills that scale burn somehow. We'll talk about skills more later. But yeah, the aim is to scale our burn and we get our flying items go as quickly as possible, essentially. And we won't ignore friends here either. There are some great friend options because obviously when we use a friend or a flying item, we charge this 1 second each time, which I believe doubles up. Okay, so as a part of that, we have Unstable Gravwell, which is, when this goes off, we destroy a passive item on our enemy's board, and it and all of our items start flying, which I guess is an okay option for this, but I prefer to use up all of our slots for things that will enable us to go faster, rather than just having the instant gratification of all of our items start flying. But that does lead us into another great, like probably my favorite build, what I think is maybe... my favorite build on Dooley, which kind of makes me a scumbag because everyone hates this build, are dinos. Primal Core, great for general use. We talked about it earlier, putting an Uzi adjacent to it, then having a Pulse Rifle with a friend on the other side adjacent to it as well. We get some nice quick weapons going on this bad boy, and it's looking real pretty. So, the rest of dinos, what do we have? We have Dinosaur, a great option with lots and lots of tags. Then we have Dianosaur, a great option for scaling all of our dinosaur weapons. We have Mummosaur, which is kind of what you have to have on your board in the late game to scale. We have Trollosaur, which is another, great self-scaling dino. And then we have Dino Disguise as well, which is when we want to put an Uzi next to it or another fast small weapon. And we essentially get to scale it as well using our destroy, scale, damage functions. So the build in general is all about meta scaling, right? Like early on, it's obviously about using the Primal Core just to scale naturally in our fights. But then later on, we move to... We do have to get it kind of early. I will preface this by saying that if you don't get Dianosaur soon, you should focus on playing around the Primal Core and making that as good as possible, because it is possible to go to 10 with the Primal Core and, just supporting weapons for it. It can be a little bit harder than what regular dinos, but it's definitely possible. So metascaling, what does that mean? So we want to destroy items as dinos because when Dianosaur gets used for the first time, she destroys a small item. When Mamasaur gets used for the first time, she destroys a medium or small. And then when either player falls to half health for the first time, Trollosaur destroys an item as well. And when we destroy an item, we gain damage. Trollosaur does it for itself, Dianosaur does it for all the other dinos in a limited capacity, and then Mamasaur does it for all the other dinos in like a, massive damage scaling. So when we start getting multiple instances of destruction per fight, like let's say we have all 3 of these on our board, we're getting a ton of damage. We're getting a ton of meta scaling basically. And that's what the build is sort of about, is that obviously we have the interruption of destroying our enemy's items, but that isn't necessarily our end game. Destroying is all good and well, but it's more about the crazy damage that you can get from these in the end game, and just making it go as fast as possible. One of my favorite builds so far this season has been something like Fiber Optics. We have Dinosaur in the leftmost, and then we pick up something like Dinosaddle, which gives our vehicles multicast, and the thrusters. And then we put our Trollosaur, which has huge damage numbers because it has that self-damage scaling, as well as some of the other ones going. And then we use the Dinosaur twice every 3 seconds, get a bunch of charge on it because of Fiber Optics, and we're charging our vehicle over here because of the thrusters. And it also has multicast, so it just gets to go really rapidly. Just an example of like some kind of endgame build. But yeah, I've really been enjoying dinos, and it is kind of easy and mindless to pull off when you get them. You just kind of have to rearrange your board in order to get the most destruction on your PvE encounters. But yeah, that's dinos. And I guess we did talk about thrusters and the Dinosaddle recently. This is probably a lot of what Dooley's endgame comes down to, I find, is that you find Dinosaddle and thrusters, or you have a vehicle item of some kind, and you give it multicast. Because, what better option is there for the efficacy of an item other than literally doubling its effectiveness, right? Like, giving an item multicast literally makes it doubly as effective. Dinosaddle, for reference, gives our vehicles multicast, and thrusters makes the item to the left of vehicle. So a really common option we saw in previous seasons was running something like Ignition Core, or running a Crit Core or a core, self-scaling core of some kind. We put thrusters on that core so it scales twice and gets used twice. And then we also have, this, which gives it that multicast, and it does just go crazy. That's the interaction between these, I guess, and that's why it's so good with dinosaurs, because we get the multicast on Dinosaur really easily. But yeah, now let's talk about Shield a little bit. And these two kind of blend in together. I put these tech items down here of what I think are some great tech items this season. So we'll talk about our Shield first, our Armored Core build. So, Force Field, it's our damage dealer. Pretty straightforward. We don't need it. It is very possible to just have the survivability that you need from Armored Core to make this work. Some great options for this in the early game. Obviously, before we have the bunker is the end game for this. Discard every other idea in your mind. Bunker is probably, most likely, the best item for Shield Dooley, because it, like we were saying before, multicast on our items literally doubles how effective they are. It doesn't get better than that most of the time. Armored Core obviously being a great self-scaling shield item, and let's just say we stick duct tape to the right, because whenever we use an item to the left of duct tape, it shields, right? And then we can scale that shield with Armored Core, and that's the idea behind this, is that we have a lot of shield, and then we have some kind of payoff, usually, but you don't have to, with something like Force Field. Yeah. And that is kind of all there is to it. It does link into these. Chrono Barrier obviously fits in really well because, the Armored Core is a tech item, so is Force Field, and then we can, influence our enemy's board and make it harder for them to do combat. That's what makes this so good, right? Is that at Gold, it gives 1 second to all non-tech items, and at Diamond, it's 2 seconds to all non-tech items. So it's a really great option. And then we have Motherboard, which is when we use a tech item, charge this, and then on use it haste adjacent items. So it is another really great option. It's kind of like I guess like a companion core for tech. You know, you use tech and then you get to use a tech item that hastes adjacent ones instead of using a friend and hasting adjacent items. I digress. I find it to be really great with these because Armored Core is tech, and then we have Force Field, which is also tech, and sometimes you can be really funny and get a shield enchant on this to give it multicast, and it creates kind of like an infinite combo. But yeah, in general, just some really strong options for Armored Core, and I've really enjoyed this build this season as well. In the past, Force Field has been all about getting defensive grid and just annihilating your opponents off rip. But now it's been cool to see more of a scaling build come into play with something like Armored Core. And now let's talk about some of the cores which myself, I in theory, I know how to play them, but I haven't done much of it this season. I'm going to be open and honest. So if you have any ideas, tell me how you play these cores in the comments, because I don't really play them. I think for these two, for Crit and Armored Core, it is kind of straightforward. Stick items to the left of it, make them go as fast as possible. And you know, if you want Crit, put items to the right of Crit Core, and if you want more damage, put items to the right of Weaponized Core. The core is a little bit trickier. I find Launcher Core a little bit easier to play than it. Just because the payoff from Launcher Core is, I think, better. But yeah, some interesting options here, but not ones that I use, unfortunately. And we'll talk about Friends and Dualtron now. So, Friends. Friends. So, let's get it out the way. Robotics Factory, it's the same thing with Bunker. Gives all of our friends multicast. It's a great endgame option. And then, yeah, that's kind of all there is to it. You know, it's a great endgame option. And then we have, you know, the Companion Core, which is probably, you know, it's the best core for friends, with, I think, relatively little competition. And I love playing it in the early game with, you know, our guy over here. I struggle remembering names. We've got Clorance, and then we've also got Brick Buddy. Sorry. I don't remember them. There's a lot of items in this game. But yeah, I love playing them early on with these two items and then just having some small, fast friends like First Aiden and, you know, maybe Miss Isles or something after day one. I think that's a really solid option. And then, yeah, Companion Core. We're hasting items, so obviously when we think about what Miss Isles does, which is when we use the core, we reload Miss Isles and it gains damage. And then obviously it's a friend, it's relatively fast, we put it adjacent to the Companion Core, and we're getting a great interaction from these two. And it's the same thing with Mech Moles. You put Mech Moles adjacent to it, we're getting a ton of haste on it, and it just works out really great. Then, you know, great small options just to make our Companion Core go a little bit faster, and, you know, our other friends work a little bit better, is Firefly and First Aiden. They can get really quick. I put Hamlet over here. Obviously, we need slow to make him work, but here's another really great option. Then we have Race Carl, which obviously is, you know, a no-brainer given the fact that Companion Core hastes, and it does work really well. Some other interactions that I think work great are, you know, we have things like Fiber Optics, which kind of integrates into a lot of different builds. When we have really fast friends on the left and we're charging some not so fast friends on the right. And then we obviously have the haste from Companion Core, which can go into something like Thermal Lance. If we want more haste on something like Mech Moles, we can use something like the Metronome. Lots and lots of great options. And then we have Dualtron Mainframe, which it does work well with this core. And I have seen Pun Fun make a really great video on this where he used Miss Isles and Race Carl, a hologram, a fiber optics, and then Dualtron Mainframe just to go crazy quick. Because, you know, we're getting so many haste triggers from Race Carl activating, and then we're getting the Companion Core activating, and, you know, Miss Isles gains so much damage from that as well. But then this also kind of links to Dualtron, right? And Dualtron does link to a lot of these friends, and a lot of these items as well in the middle here, especially Metronome, because, you know, you get a lot of haste procs, and if you put slow, burn, poison on this, then you get some of the other ones as well that you need. Dualtron is obviously a really high impact item. He's got a big payoff, but he's got a really high cooldown. And with the recent nerfs to internal cooldown being the amount of times that an item can be charged in a second. Now, I think from what I believe, from what I've heard from people, it's kind of hard for me to look at my screen and confirm it for myself when I'm playing the game. But it has gotten worse. Drill, Dualtron have gotten worse because of the nerfs to this. The nerfs being that the internal cooldown doesn't stack as effectively when we have different proc types. So when we have haste and slow and burn and poison, I believe the internal cooldown doesn't stack for those, and it just makes them slower, I think is how it works. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that. But I do think it's gotten a bit worse. But I digress. Back to Dualtron. At gold, okay. Diamond, great if you can get it early-ish, right? But the whole idea is to get as many haste, poison, slow, freeze, burn, procs as possible in the quickest amount of time. Because you can get Dualtron to go off really fast when you have other items like holsters, for example, haste all your small items, and like a metronome, and you have some really fast, small items that just proc haste, proc slow really quickly. You can get this thing to go off crazy fast. Then you obviously have the added benefit of the shield whenever you use a friend, but I find typically it's more about the damage. So, that's our chart. These aren't, I'll reiterate once again, these aren't all the items, these aren't all the builds, these are just kind of the main segments that I see most of the time, and these change season by season. Some other builds come into prominence, and some of these builds will fade out of existence in other patches as well. But that is kind of my big sheet of items. This thing takes a while to put together because there's so many images to download. So we talked about a brief overview of build types. Now we move on to Dooley's key items and where to find them. So first of all, economy. I'll go through the list and then we'll go through them. So we have economy, key items for build archetypes, great enablers, great monster items, and items from other heroes. So, obviously, some of the most key items in the game are the cores, and I just want to highlight briefly, I think most people do know this, but you get the cores at level 3. So, in the later parts of day 2, you get to choose 5 out of 8. You get to choose from 5 out of 8 of the cores. And now we'll just get into the rest of the key items. So, first of all, we have Dooley's economy, which is, there's not a lot, to be completely honest with you. I think the best option is Temporal Navigator, because at the start of each day, we get a relic from any hero. Now, this means that the item can be of any size, which is the most important thing. Because when we look at Dooley's other 2 items, we have schematics and we have SATCOM, and they only give you a small item. So, Temporal Navigator is your best option for Dooley, I believe, to get more money, basically. So, now, key items for build archetypes. When we think about dinos, I guess, Dinosaur is probably your biggest damage dealer, usually. Disentrolosaur is another one. Dianosaur is your early game scaling. It's essential to this build. Force Field is a key item for your armored core build. Bunker, it's another key item as well. And then we have Launchpad as well for our flight builds, Dino Saddle, and then we pair thrusters with that, Robotics Factory for multicast, Dualtron for Dualtron's build, Mamasaur for our later game scaling, and then we have these enablers over here. So where do we find these? It's a medium tech item, and it's also a vehicle. So obviously we can find this at, our medium item vendor, at our tech vendor, and then we can also just get a tech item as well. Schematics, it's obviously similar. It has, it's a medium item, so we're going to find it there. It's silver as well. SATCOM is bronze medium, so you can find this a lot on day 1 and just get a lot of medium friend, not a lot of medium friends, a lot of small friends very quickly. So yeah, JJ Barkin, Toxclox, Kina, Mattel, Sylvia, Lux, Goldie, the Tester, Quixel, and Kronos. Then we have JG Barkin, Toxclox, Kina, Mattel, Sylvia, Lux, Goldie, the Tester, Quixel, and Kronos. And then we can find it at Cobweb, Nightshade, Hef, and Freya. Schematics is a little bit more limited because of the less amount of tags. You can get it at JJ, Barkin, Kina, Mattel, Sylvia, Lux, Goldie, the Tester, and Quixel. And I'll just kind of let you have a look at these because I don't feel like reading them out on all of them. And then, yeah, it is just like I guess a way of memorizing it. Like we just kind of eventually know the tags on these items. And we just kind of learn where they are. Obviously, the more specific things is like learning which monster encounters have them. But the easier way of remembering it is literally just remembering what tags are on what item. Like, I remember that, you know, let's say thrusters is a small tech item. And I know that I can find that at the tech vendor. I can find that at, you know, JJ's because JJ sells everything. I can find that at Andy because he sells small items. It's just kind of, it just takes time learning where to find these things. But yeah, like we've got all of our core, some of our core items, not all of the key items, but they're most of them. And then we have our enablers. So Pulse Rifle, it's a great sub. It's just a nice fast weapon. We have SMG, aka Uzi. Don't remember why they changed the name. Like, I don't really get that, by the way. But yeah, and then obviously Metronome. Metronome is quite tough. It obviously is a haste item, and like you can find it, but it just doesn't have any tags. It's just a small Dooley item with the haste tag, so it can be a little bit tough to find. Miss Isles and Mech Moles, like these, I was kind of knocking up between having them as a key build around item and having them in here, but they're not essential for a friend build. You can play friends without having these two, but they're just really great. And then, yeah, we've got everywhere we can find them in here. Bazaar DB, a great resource. I'll have this link down in the description below. Alright, now we'll just go through some great monster items and items from other heroes. So at Ladle, Dooley's weapon scaling can go kind of crazy with something like a weaponized core. So at Ladle can be really great for this. Bayonet, again, with the weaponized core, you know, we're just putting it to the right and we're essentially doubling the damage that we're dealing. Chimeric Egg, we do a lot of friend stuff with Dooley, so getting a random enchanted friend can be really good sometimes. Clamorer, you know, when we think of things like Rigged, a lot of Dooley's, a lot of skills operate off when we first use an item, and a lot of items also operate off that as well, so Clamorer is a great option for most heroes and builds. Fang is a nice quick small weapon. Lighter, again, it's a nice quick small burn item. Makeshift Barricade, along with Improvised Bludgeon, when we think of things like Plasma Grenade, we're just, you know, amplifying the amount of slow that we have. This is a really good item. Powder Horn, we have Uzi, we have Atomic Clock. We have some really great ammo items on Dooley that just don't have a lot of reload, so Powder Horn can be a good option sometimes. Rocket Boots, again, like Makeshift Barricade, we're just amplifying the haste on a certain item. Knife Set, we're all about going fast on Dooley, so if we're using a lot of weapons, then Knife Set is a great option. Probo, when we're doing funky slow stuff, we can pick a weaponized core and basically get a free 10 wins. It is a lot harder to get this now, but it's still possible. Like, you fight the giant mosquito on day 3, it's a lot tougher now though. Holsters, it's a great item on most builds. We have small items on Dooley, we're getting a lot of haste procs, something like Dualtron, this can go crazy with. So, Magnus Femur as well, you know, we can do a lot of slow on Dooley, so this can be a really great option. Yo-Yo, it goes extremely quickly, so whenever we're running a core build which relies off of item procs of some kind, Yo-Yo is typically a good option. And Pendulum, you know, when we use an item to the right, charge the item to the left, and vice versa, it's still decent. Obviously nowhere near as good as what it used to be, but it's still okay. So, now, we look at Dooley's skills. So we're going to look at some of Dooley's skills, like his unique ones, and then we'll look at some more general ones as well as monster skills as well, which I haven't included on this slide. So, Dooley, his skills. We'll just kind of scroll through and I'll just point out some good ones as we kind of go along. Artillery Spotter, not amazing. like it is good with something like force field because we have a limited amount of items. Defense grid, it's great on everyone. If we're running burn, then burn skills are obviously great. Keen eye is solid just for general crit. Left-handed, right-handed, and strength are great in the early game. Supply cache is obviously always amazing. Buddy system is great if we have one friend. Conflagration is great with something like the welding torch. Creeping chill, all of our freeze on burn, slow, etc. are all really good. We have some really fast vehicles, so flashy pilot can also be really good. Firepower is another really great one if we want more damage scaling. Honed arsenal for running wide weapons is also great. Improvised weaponry is great for a crit core build. Machine learning is one of the best skills for Dooley because we just get to expedite the core level up process basically, which is really important for Dooley. Let's see, reserve shield is another great one if we're running something like force field. Quick freeze as well. Toxic flame can be really good. We've got some great options for poison and for burn. Static acceleration, we do a ton of haste on Dooley. Searing flames is a great one as well. When we think of something like launchpad, we can put a lot of haste on it. It just gets a ton of scaling. Slow and steady, we can do a ton of slow. Shatter, we can also do a lot of freeze, so that's good as well. Tracer fire is great for scaling crit. Big numbers, something like force field is amazing. Electrified hull, if we're running armored core sort of builds, and this is really good. It's possible to get vehicles on Dooley, so you know, this is a really great option as well to reduce our cooldown. Burn containment as well being great. CPU throttling is great as well. Grease fire is great when we want lots of procs or something like Dualtron or even drill, to be honest with you. Liquid cooled, it's great just for some general freeze, and then we also get the freeze proc as well. Tiny dancer, we're gonna have at least 7 items a lot on Dooley, so this is a really great option. Warm hugs, obviously this works really well. And then we just kind of get into the great skills. Like we think Desperate Cleanse is always great. Double Down is always pretty great. Emergency Shield is always pretty great. Glass Cannon, obviously double-edged. Healthy Heart, obviously great. Intrusion Countermeasures is one of Dooley's great unique skills when we're running something like Dinos. This is crazy. We just get to use all of them whenever we hit half health. Knife Tricks, you know, obviously Dooley goes really fast, so his weapons are going to be quick. And this will just make their cooldowns that much lower really quickly. Living Flame is obviously really great as well. Moth to a Flame, you know, we do stack a lot of burn with Dooley, so both of these are great. And we do have a lot of tools on Dooley that, you know, would really appreciate multicast, so retooled can be really great as well. Well-oiled Machine is, you know, a particular use case, but it can be really good as well. Alright, we're going to do the same thing for monster skills. Aggressive, we use weapons really quickly, so this is great. Ammo stash is actually really underrated because we have things like Uzi, things like Atomic Clock where we want a lot of ammo on them. Arms race is okay, we do a lot of burn, so this is good as well. We do haste a lot, so Cosmic Whip can be good. Diamond Fangs is always amazing, usually. Flame Dancer is okay. Hard Shell is pretty good. Heat Lover is, you know, okay. Lash Out is okay. Panic is kind of interesting. Pickpocket is great on anyone. It's just free money. Poison Tyrant isn't amazing on Dooley. Relax Bro is okay. Rush, it's okay. Rust, it's okay. We do use weapons a lot, so, you know, adjacent crit chance can be really good. Small Refresh can also be really good. Snowstorm can be very good in particular use cases. When we have like a freeze item and then say we're running a singular, you know, crit core or something, we just get a ton of scaling. Time to Tinker is great in particular use cases, like something with Armadillo and then just a lot of haste is really, really interesting. Trained is Adaptive Ordnance isn't great. All Talk is pretty great on Dooley if we're running weapons. Ambush is great on everyone. Anything to Win is great on everyone. Assault Focus is great in particular use cases. Bombing Run isn't as great on Dooley because a lot of his flying items don't rely on damage. They're kind of not based on that. Chilling Touch is pretty great on everyone. Clean Storefront, Kyro Mastery is great for shield. Draconic Rage is great for burn. Great for burn. Vehicle can be really interesting on Dooley because it's so easy to access multicast with something like Dino Saddle. Great if we have shield. Haunting Flight is great if we're using something like Launcher Core. And then healthy friendship is pretty great as well, because we do have a lot of friends. Hunker down doesn't really matter too much. Jury rigor doesn't really matter too much. Petrifying gaze is great on everyone. Power broker, don't have a lot of income. Precision tools is pretty decent. Purifying flame, Pyromania, rigged, amazing on Dooley. Scramble fighters, right tool, yada yada. I'm gonna skip through the rest of them and just highlight the good ones, which is something like Toxic Friendship. Vengeance is great. Waters of Infinity is great on everyone as well. Weaponry can be good. Blizzard can be good if we're running weapons. Counter-Strike is really great. Friend Zone is obviously really great as well. Full Arsenal, we a lot of times have a vehicle, weapon, and tool. Great. Neophiliac's always good. Paralyzing Rush can be great for something like Dualtron or Drill. Trickle-down Economics is very specific use case. Unwavering is good. Void Render, specific use case. It's pretty great on dinos though. Aerial Assault is pretty good. Ancient Vengeance isn't really amazing because we don't have a lot of relics. Big Ego, great on everyone. Bonk, great on everyone. Distributed Systems is kind of good. Dual wield specific. Equivalent Exchange, okay. Double Crit is awesome. If we're using core and no other mediums, this is great. Hypnotic Drain, Insect Bite, Into the Void, Juggler can be really good. Nothing, kind of okay. Prosperity doesn't really do much. Retool can be good. Short Up can be good. Like a lot of these are specific use cases. Valley Fever as well. Void Energy, Void Rage, specific use cases. Wake Up Call, specific use cases. And then obviously we have these two, which are just great on everything as well. A bit of a long-winded one because a lot of these monster skills can be applied in very specific circumstances, so it's kind of more of just a general, can this be good in a specific circumstance? Yes. Is this good in a general use? For some of them, yes. For some of them, no. So, now we move on to the early game. What to choose? Let's just talk about what we're trying to aim for in the early game. So, days 1, 2, 3, 4. We're kind of just aiming to make a synchronous build of some kind. It can be a hybrid. It doesn't necessarily have to be exclusively, dinos or friends or something else. It just kind of has to fit, kind of. For example, let's say we're using something like Companion Core. We just want some kind of friend that scales well. Not all of our items have to be friends, but that is what we're aiming for. I think for Dooley, I'd say everything except for dinos is relatively easy to assemble in the early game. Now, what I mean by that isn't like you assemble your perfect build in the early game and you run through with it until the end. It's just kind of easy to get a general sense of what is good and what is not, and put your build together and then work on it as you go along. That's why Dooley is a tempo-based character. Now, in terms of merchants, encounters, and monsters. So we'll just quickly go through each. So we have Ayla's a solid pick. Early on, weapons can be really good on Dooley. It gives us things like Uzi, SMG, and it gives us things like Pulse Rifle and some great friend-based weapons as well. Andy, small items are great on Dooley. JJ just kind of gives us everything. Kina is another great option as well if we're looking for, non-weapon items specifically, like some great enablers. Mattel, there are some great medium items like Chlorance, like, I guess Drill in some specific use cases. Bunker can be really good early on as well. Mattel has a lot of great picks. Barkin isn't an early game one anymore, so we're just kind of looking at these guys. And then we have Sylvia. Quicksilver also great as well, but they are expensive, and it's similar with Valpak down here as well. Tinker, also expensive, but if we're building around friends, around dinos, then it can be a really, really good option. So, and then earlier, earlier on, when we talk about monsters, and we talk about really good encounters and monsters for Dooley. Now, Overheal Haste can be really great. Sorry, Healthy Jolt can be really good. But that's only really if we have First Aiden. Fanged Inglet is great for Fang. Haunted Kimono can be good for Silk or for Haunting Flight. Kyber Drone I typically avoid now just because Trained isn't any good anymore. Pyro I think is pretty great if we're running some kind of burn thing, and Light is just also a really quick small item. And then I kind of would just go Viper for the Toxic Fang and nothing else. Day 2, I kind of never go to Borea even though he has the Temple Expedition ticket. Never go to Thief either. I like going for Eccentric Aetheryte. I like going for Ventriloquist, sorry. And then, you know, if I don't feel strong enough for those two, then I'll go for Coconut Crab or Rogue Scrapper. Sometimes I go for Borea just for the Temple Expedition ticket, but most cases, I'm just aiming to go for Eccentric Aetheryte, aiming to go for Ventriloquist because they have the best outcomes. You know, we have a ticket, we have a force field, we have Rigged on Eccentric Aetheryte. And then for Ventriloquist, we have Free Ride, which is awesome. And then we also have Friendly Doll, which is an amazing, small, fast friend as well. Day 3, I'd say the last of maybe the early game. Day 4 is kind of a blend between early and mid. Dabbling Apprentice is a great option if we just want to try for the ticket and we don't want to risk anything else. I never go for Giant Mosquito. This thing, to me, I tried playing against it once and it was like terrifying, so I'm never ever going to fight it ever again. I don't know if it's strong. Frustrate Challenger, if we want to go for Snowstorm for a specific use case, then that's okay. Product Demonstrator is like, it's okay for Dooley, it's not great. Street Gamer, ticket, nothing else really. He is like, it is a little bit tough just because of the crazy scaling on Piggle's Protectors. And yeah, Hover by Cooligan if we want more ammo. If we want an Uzi, then that's a great option as well. And we'll talk about Day 4 quickly. Unless we have Shield, never go for Flame Juggler. Prince Marianus is a little bit stronger now because of the Eels buff. I find that he's still an okay option if we have, you know, high impact items and not a lot of use. But on Dooley, when we're going quick, it's a little bit of a rarer use case. Hellbilly is great just for left-handed and a ticket. A Hexa, I don't really find myself going to a Hexa that much. But a Hexa is good, I think, for Crypto and for Solar Farm. Retiree, Blood Refreighter is a great encounter, I think. We just get a bunch of money or ammo stash, really. And then, you know, take it or leave it. These two are okay. And those are all of the monsters. And then I guess we'll just talk about encounters briefly as well. So I like this one for Dooley because we just get a small silver tier friend, and I like friend builds at the moment, so I think this is a solid option. Eating contest on Day 3 is really strong. Jungle Ruins is great. I like getting a small tool or going for the loot items. I don't know whether I'd necessarily choose this one over another thing. I think I'd definitely go Strange Mushroom for a friend, but I don't know whether I would choose Jungle Ruins. The docks I find is pretty great. I like going for a tool or a weapon on Dooley. Tiny Furry Monster is probably one of the best early game encounters for Dooley because you almost always have a friend. So you get to choose between skills really, really often. Finn's Big Bite, a great option as well. If we're running Shield, we just get to scale that nice and early. And then if not, we just kind of take regen and just stick with that. That's kind of all of the early game encounters, all of the early game monsters and merchants as well. And now we'll move on to the mid game. Dooley's mid game is much of the same. When we're talking about what to choose, at this point we've chosen our core, and now we decide whether we're building around the core, which I would say in most cases we are. With something like Dinos is maybe one of the rarer cases, and Dualtron as well, where you're not building around a core, but I'd say in the majority of the time you are going to be building around one. And I guess the mid game is kind of just when we start bringing our build together. How can we not necessarily make our build as optimized as possible? That's kind of for the late and end game. But with the mid game, it's all about, let's have every single item on our board really mean something when it comes to our build. Like, not just contribute necessarily, but every single item on our board is really useful. It's not just there because it's a fast item. it's there because it is like inherently useful to our build. So when I think of something like, I keep using dinos as an example, but it's so easy to illustrate the mid, like early and late game of it. The mid game for dinos is you so far have found a nice quick weapon, you've been putting it next to your primal core, and that's kind of been your early game, right? It's that. And you found Dianosaur, you found Trollosaur, you've got Dinosaur as well. And now your mid game is like, you do continue with that, but at the same time, you're searching for Dino Disguise as well, and you're looking to phase out the primal core and use those smaller, faster items around your like Dino Disguise and scale those up a little bit as well. And then you're also, in the mid game, we're looking for Mamasaur as well. We're looking for that really crucial item, and we're looking to make our build better and more like efficacious, basically. And that's kind of what we're doing in the mid game. When we talk about what to choose, it is when we think about merchants, encounters, and monsters. I guess we can start talking about that now. So mid-game merchants, it is much of the same, but I guess Barkin is a great option for Dooley. A lot of our large gold items can be found here, right? And Kev's Armory is kind of one that we missed before, and Midsworth, but they're also really, really great options. And then Curio as well. I would say we're not really going to Curio a lot in the early game for Dooley just because he's so expensive, and sometimes his trade-off isn't great. And then we continue with Tinker. Tox Clocks is amazing on Dooley. A lot of Dooley's haste, slow, and cooldown items are really, really good and crucial to a lot of builds. Pole is another amazing one as well. Goldie, Gassio. We start seeing a lot of these rarer merchants, and it's all about the specific use case. So when we have our build on board, like let's say we have our dinosaurs and we're looking for Mamasaur, I'm looking at Pole, I'm looking for Barkin. It's all build dependent. So when we think of something like Friends, we're going to go to Tinker more, definitely going to go to Tox Clocks more because we want haste items, like we want that metronome a lot. And we go to Orion for tools as well. We want tech items as well. The tester starts popping up. And it's, yeah, it is just different use cases for things. And a lot of these, I think most, if not all of these, just appear in the mid game. I don't think many of these just appear after like day 9, 10, 8. Maybe Freya and some of these diamond ones. I guess we can literally check my knowledge. But like it is, yeah, it doesn't really say here. But yeah, it is just, it's use case. And I guess we'll kind of skip it in the late game and we'll just talk about the rest of these merchants now. But for Dooley especially, well, not just Dooley, I guess for all of your heroes, it's all about what you want to find, right? Like, you've always got an item in your head that you're thinking, oh my gosh, this item would make my build so much better. And then you just click on the merchant for it, right? It's pretty straightforward. I guess, especially for Dooley, some great merchants. Enchantments on Dooley can be really great. Every time I'm on Dooley, I'm ready to make a sacrifice play and sell a bunch of stuff. It is like not always like crucial, but it's, most of the time I'm willing to make that sacrifice play if I see something really good. Now, monsters. I guess in the mid game, it is most of the same. Like, it's all about your specific use case, right? Like, it's similar to merchants. Like, what do we want from our fight? Are we looking for just getting the most gold possible, or are we looking for items? Like, the only reason we should be taking a fight at this point, they're all worth the same amount of XP typically, unless we think we can get ahead and fight a tough fight, like let's say Scoville. Not super tough, but unless we think we can get ahead, we are just playing for an item that we would want, an item or a skill that we would want. For example, Sabretooth, I'd play here for Diamond Fangs or Shiny Fang. And, Harkuvian Rocket Trooper, I'd play here for, let's say, flashy reload or a little bit more ammo. And it's all about use case. Like, we're fighting Kyber Commander, Gorgon Noble, Trashtown Myth for the ticket, for other items. It's all about the specific use case, right? Like, for Dooley, though, specifically, I think we want lots of small, fast items. So, Shiny Fang is amazing. All Talk on Dooley is amazing. Vengeance on Dooley is really good. Counter-Strike on Dooley is really good. Temple Expedition ticket, obviously. Petrifying Gaze is good on everyone. They've got a ticket as well. Augmented Weaponry can be really good as well on the Temple Expedition. Those are probably the highlights on day 5. And we'll just kind of go through and talk about specifically what's good for Dooley. Aggressive, it's great. Obsidian Fang, it's great. Toxic Friendship is really good on Dooley as well. Flashing Mechanic can be great in specific use cases. Foundation Weeper has a Temple Expedition ticket. Trash Golem I probably wouldn't go here on Dooley. Dire Mosquito is a little bit scary here. I don't know whether I'd go there, but Trained and Paralyzing Rush are great, as well as a lot of these items like Proboscis, like Stinger, even. Even though it is a 7-second cooldown item, it has inherent lifesteal, and we're getting a lot of slow procs from it. Loan Shark kind of wouldn't ever come here. Infernal, if we're feeling tough enough, it's the same thing with Lich here. A lot of things here are really good. It's just if we're good enough. Sergeant Suds, kind of not great, to be honest with you, on Dooley. Like, we can get a hammer, because we can buy a lot of tools on Dooley, but it is not an amazing fight for us. Viper Tyrant, skip. Ghost Pepper, skip. Light is decent, but apart from that, I'd probably skip Ghost Pepper. Joyful Jack, skip. Treasure Turtle, I'm here for Clamorer, and I'm here for the Temple Expedition ticket. Annex Trooper, I'm there for Trace of Fire. Chili Charles, I'm there for Icicle, can be quite good. Reaching the Summit can also be quite good. Thug is such a stupid hard fight now. I'm yet to beat him. Because I just don't fight him because I'm so scared. But obviously there's a lot of great options here. Bonk being maybe one of, if not the best skill in the game. And Radiant Corsair, similar sort of situation. Probably slightly less scary than Thug, in all honesty. But then we have Fiery Rebirth and some great options there as well. Day 8, this will be the last day that we discuss. Cloud Top Officer, not great as an encounter for Dooley. Cosmic Rock can be really good. I like Cosmic Wind and I like Keen Eye on Dooley. And then obviously we can get a Gold Feather as well, which can be really, really great. Just to reduce cooldown, Joyful Jack probably wouldn't go here. Bouncertron, I really like Sharpened Steel. Also got some really great options, like if we want a Pulse Rifle, if we want a Katana, some fast items. Car Conductor, both of these are really great. Expert Pilot is pretty good. Command Ship is really amazing as well, just in terms of the cooldown reduction. Then Race Car can be really great in specific builds as well. Infernal Frigate, Incendiary Rounds can be great on Ignition Core. Thrusters is obviously great for vehicle and multicasting when we get a Diamond Saddle. Burninator Bot, Thermal Lance is an amazing item. Slow Burn can be really good as well. Kind of just coming to Dr. Vortex for Neophiliac. And also all of their items are gold, so this gets us a lot of money. Oasis Guardian, Waters of Infinity can be really good. Magnus Femur can be really good. Wandering Shoal, Thick Hide is probably the only thing that we're wanting here. Dragon, Draconic Rage, Dragon Heart are both really good. Probably don't care about anything else, but it is worth money. Okay, so that is monsters done. Let's talk about some encounters, like just some regular events that kind of come into the mid game a little bit more. First of all, Gumball Machine. Very rarely do I find myself getting Gumballs on Dooley. It's only in the late game when I've got a very complete build and I just want incremental amounts of crit chance. Would I come here? Jules Cafe, I think early is really, really great to get weapon damage and then relax in the late game where we want a big boon to our HP. Aerodrome, obviously great when we want an expedition ticket. Bazaar Con, pick the XP basically every single time. Artisan Dunes, I don't find myself, if there isn't any better options that kind of come here. Grandmaster, skill upgrades are amazing. Pearl's Dig Site, I love going through here. I just kind of roll until I don't have any more money typically and just try and find something amazing. Shrouded Figure, XP is obviously amazing. Let's see, Bottle. We don't have a lot of poison items on Dooley typically, so it's not amazing. Deflect, like all of these guys like Form, Flambe, Deflect are really great when we have that specific use case. Dooley's Crib is amazing. We love upgrading the core and gaining 10% max HP if we have a core on us and in our build. And if not, Improved Friendship is really great as well, especially if we have a crucial item like Mama Saw where it doubles our damage scaling. Yeah, Flambe Form, amazing. Hattie, amazing on everyone. And then the Cult, kind of not great. Thieves Guild, obviously amazing on everyone as well, because we just get to fight Mr. Moo and just get a bunch of XP. That kind of covers all of the events, so we won't cover any in the late game, but all of these like just start showing up around the mid to late game. But now we'll talk about the late game, and then we'll talk about the end game afterwards as well. So, the late game. I think I will combine the late game and the end game together. We've kind of talked about all the merchants. I will have a look over the monsters briefly, but you know, in terms of the late game and the end game, what are our goals now? Like, what do we want to do to make our builds like that much better? Like, what are we choosing? What makes it better? The whole goal is to just start as fast as possible, I think, at this point. Especially when we get into the super late game. It's just starting faster than your enemy because typically you're just doing so much instantaneously when your board goes, or scaling so rapidly that just starting earlier is such a huge boon. And yeah, it's the same thing in the late game and the end game in terms of that. But the one difference between the late game and the end game is all about that. It's all about going as fast as possible, typically. Because you don't get to the end game unless your build is pretty much perfect. Nigh on perfect. But the late game, you can still make improvements to your build here, I think. At least in most cases. I'll keep using dinosaurs as an example because I find it so easy to talk about. We're looking for a Mamasaur upgrade. We're looking to make sure that even though our meta scaling is outdoing the damage on our PvE encounters, we're looking for a way to try and maximize the amount of destruction we get in order to keep our scaling going for our fights. And that's kind of the key difference, is that the end game is kind of just all about going as fast as possible. You already have your perfect build. The late game, there's still improvements to be made. You can still make upgrades. You know, you haven't necessarily reached level 13 yet. It isn't always that. You can still make those improvements. But let's just briefly go through the monsters and talk about their relevance for Dooley specifically. So, late game, end game, Bloodreef Captain, kind of just coming here for full arsenal. It's pretty easy to have the requirements for Dooley. Cloudtop Admiral. Admiral's badge is interesting, and Dooley, with their launcher core, can do some interesting stuff. Big Ego, obviously amazing. Knife Set can be really good. Holsters can be really good. Roaming Isle, I find, is a little bit of a miss. Clamor can be good in some use cases. Never really find myself going to Terraform. Ferris Khan, don't really find myself going here too much either. Weapons platform, I love distributed systems. I love Keen Eye. I do like an SMG as well, but I'm not really coming here for much else. Yerden, I love a yo-yo. That's kind of it, to be honest with you. Foundation Revenant, exposing toxins can be good if we have that poison. If not, don't care for anything else. Void Knight, I love Desperate Cleanse. I come here for Desperate Cleanse. And obviously the fact that these two give 4 XP matters a lot as well. Now, day 10, all of the fights, day 10, past day 10. Boss Harrow, the only reason I'd go here is to try for a soul focus if I have a slow based build. Crit chance, regular damage probably doesn't really matter too much at this point. Don't really find myself going to Hulking Experiment on Dooley. Same thing with Master Alchemist. Infernal Dreadnought, same thing. Don't really find myself going here. Lord of the Wastes, the double crit damage is pretty great. Cooldown can be really good as well. Test Subject Alpha, don't really find myself going here on Dooley either. Tortuga can be really great. I love Friend Zone if we're running friend builds. Warm Hugs can be really good if we're running something like Dualtron as well. Trash Titan, Juggler, specific use case can be really good. A Catalyst, also an amazing thing if we want to try and re-roll something. Specific use cases for Heated Shells, for Wake Up Call, it's the same sort of thing. Dualtron, same thing. It's specific to the use case. Like, Nanobot can be good. Electrovite Hole can be good. The bugs can be good. Rex Specs can be good when we use a friend. Static Acceleration can be good if we're hasting a lot. And then obviously I do like Zoacid. It's a bit too little too late for Dino Disguise, but it is interesting to try and get some other dinosaurs. Volks Enforcer kind of just coming here for Kyra Mastery. You can have some good freeze builds on Dooley. I think that Kyra Master is probably the best get here though. Frost Street Champion, a similar sort of use case if we're trying for a freeze sort of thing. If not, it's usually the best option on a day if we want to just max out our XP for 4. Property Baron, only reason I'd come here is for the 4 XP. Void Colossus, either Colossus can be good on Dooley, isn't always though. Void Energy and Void Rage can be very, very good on Dooley, so that's kind of why I'd be going there. Awakened District, Solar District can be good in specific use cases. Trickle Down Economics is the exact same thing. 8-Arm Davy, Hyper Focus can be really good. Arms Race can be really good. Strength can be really good. Octopus, don't really find myself using it that much. It'd be interesting to see it in a Friends build. I haven't really seen anyone use this in that use case. Morgoloth, don't really find myself going here unless it's just because it's the best option for XP. Void Golem, Void Render can be good on dinos, so can Into the Void in theory, but I wouldn't really find myself going here that much just because, you know, just unless it's the best option in terms of XP. Briefly talk about some of the other rarer encounters. Mr. Moo, typically we would only ever come here for entering the Thieves Guild, which is essentially just giving us free 4 XP. And if I was going to choose between Mythkeeper, Greenheart Guardian, and Chromats, it would be Greenheart Guardian pretty much every time. We don't really have relics on Dooley that much, so I think Greenheart Guardian is a lot better just because we are going to be using weapons a lot, and we're probably going to have Shield sometimes as well. And then, yeah, Mimic, we're coming here for Ravenous. A nice fast Fang, maybe something shiny, maybe an Obsidian Fang, who knows. And those are all the monsters. And now, we've talked about that. We've talked about the end game as well. Yeah, I just want to reiterate, I guess as a brief summary, Dooley is all about tempo. Right, it's his whole thing is, you know, finding a great build, we're sticking through it for most of the game, and we're trying to go as fast as possible most of the time. You know, we build around some cores, we have our build types, we're looking for, you know, key items. There are obviously, it is a wide variety of things that we can do with Dooley, and he's my favorite character. You know, small disclaimer, and that's it. That's the guide. I hope you found something useful from this. Please let me know down in the comments your thoughts on this, how you've been playing Dooley. If anything from this guide helped you. I do like making this type of guide style content, but I'm a little bit more limited on time recently, so that's why my videos have been a little bit more sporadic. But yeah. Please drop a like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below. It does help out the channel a lot, and this is still my little pet project. I still want this to succeed. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.